Hello everyone, this is Lydia from Pilot Language School, and today I'd like to welcome Ron Morrain, who will be running his Today workshop in Pilot Language School in March 28th and 29th. Hello Ron.
Hi.
Okay, so first I'd like to introduce you and say a couple of words about you. Ron Morrain is a professor at Duisburg-Essen University, and he's the innovator of the concept of ready-made mind maps, which facilitate task-based learning and project-based learning, clear approach, and also language coaching sessions for L2 and L1 learners. Also, Ron is a regular speaker at conferences internationally, and he also gives workshops, talks, and webinars on the topic of TBL and PBL and mind maps in the second language learning. Right, Ron?
That's right.
Okay, Ron, we are all excited about your coming workshops in Rostov in March 28th and 29th. And I've been getting lots of questions from teachers who want to know more what this workshop will be really about. Yeah, so let me ask you some questions, okay?
I'm ready.
On the topic. To tell you the truth, sometimes I hear that teachers are confused about these two terms, PBL and TBL. So can you please explain, are TBL and PBL relate to each other, or they are different?
Well, they really are. They're related, but they also are very different. I think I'll start with just what is task-based learning. And task-based learning is it's a method. It's not an approach. It's a method. It's a proven method. It's been tried and tested at major universities and schools throughout the world. It doesn't make a difference what language you're working in. Task-based learning is really, I always call it the jewel of the crown of English language teaching. But it's not something complicated or too scientific for anybody to not learn it. In fact, I believe that most teachers are actually doing it, but really don't know that they're doing it. And after we do the workshops, they always say, I've been doing that all along, but I didn't know that that was task-based learning. But, task-based learning, to make it simple, is just about planning a learning cycle where we prepare the students to create a product within a given time frame, and that they present the product, and that we as teachers will assess them and give them feedback throughout the learning cycle, not at the end, but also at the end, that we give them feedback on the results of their performance or results and the product creation. Now, PBL, and there's 3 PBLs, by the way. Problem-based learning, there's project-based learning, and there's phenomena-based learning. And this is something that we're going to learn about in the workshop, is what are the 3 PBLs, and how do I know which ones work for me and which ones can work well for me. But TBL is basically keeping the learning cycle in the classroom, whereas PBL is taking the problem-based learning and giving students a problem and helping them to solve that problem in English or even in Russian or whatever language you want to do it in. Project-based learning is when we make that TBL into a project and take it outside the classroom, where students are going outside asking other people for help and getting assistance, where we really call what's field work. But taking learning outside of the classroom. And phenomena-based learning is when the project gets really so big that we're involving the whole community and other classes in the school. And this is where I say that project-based learning, and first we start with TBL, but getting teachers to know what TBL is, and then taking outside the room where it's project-based learning, gets all the teachers in the school involved. And it's a great way for teachers and for students to really collaborate with one another, but first starting on a small basis and then moving it a little bit bigger. I love when I go to schools and teach teachers how it works, and And what it really creates at the end is really teachers learning how to work with one another as well.
All right, Ron, do I get it right that task-based learning can be accomplished within one lesson, while project-based learning might take much more time, probably a week or a month?
There's a wonderful German word called Jein, which means yes and no.
Okay.
Actually, you're right in a way. There are task-based learning cycles that can last 90 minutes. I don't think that it would be too successful if you did one for 45 minutes, because you would have to ask yourself, what is the learning effect there? And what about some knowledge transfer? But definitely a task-based learning cycle can be 90 minutes, whereas project-based learning and all the PBLs really do take more time.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So as far as I know, project-based learning comes from different spheres, and it has become hugely popular in ELT. Can you explain why, the reasons for popularity?
Well, you know, I would like to say that maybe it could be a little bit of how technology has really started to influence what happens in a classroom. It is possible for students to leave the classroom and work in longer, more extended learning cycles because of the internet and the ability to research and do things. So that is really one reason. But I think the most important reason is that we've moved on from communicative language learning, lexical approaches and things, because, you know, that's going to happen anyway in a task-based learning cycle. You can't just be doing lexical learning and that's the only thing that you're doing. It's more than that. So task-based learning and project-based learning, the students are more involved in the learning. It's not teacher-oriented anymore. And task-based learning that's why I call it the crown jewel, you know, of methodologies. It is that methodology that allows students to take over the classroom and where teachers take a step back. And that could cause a problem for some teachers because, you know, they're very teacher oriented and they're used to really running the classroom. But, you know, we need to take a step back and learn how to let the students take over the classroom and start discovering and learning for themselves. Because in the end, it's about learning. It's not about teaching. And that's why task-based learning, TBL and PBL are great methodologies to apply in the classroom. I call the modern classroom.
Yeah. By the way, can TBL and PBL be applied in primary learners' classroom, or it's more suitable for higher levels, such as B1, B2 levels?
Well, you know, I train many teachers every year, and I train teachers from, you know, primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, and about 500 every year. And have been doing it for the last, you know, 15 years almost now. And I have to say that it's TBL and PBL for primary school students are a little bit, the topics are different, the goals are different, the language levels will be different. But the structure of TBL, that really doesn't change because of whether they're primary school students or junior high school students or high school students or university students. Let us not forget that task-based learning and PBL and TBL are very effective methodologies for corporate learning as well. And we're going to talk about that too at the workshop. But no, the only thing that changes is just maybe the topics, but the structure of TBL or PBL, that doesn't change.
All right. So the next question that I have here, what skills or experience does a teacher need to have to effectively implement TBL in their classroom? Does it require much from a teacher? Do they have to undergo some extra training to start doing TBL in the classroom?
I love that question. And, you know, in the beginning, when I first started, I was learning myself. And so I had to become comfortable with a lot of changes that were taking place in and how I do things, and then something that was really deeper, and the change that probably is the most uncomfortable for teachers when they move to this methodology, because it's a move. It's a big change. And the one thing that I realized that what a teacher needs is a positive attitude towards change, a positive attitude towards themselves. In other words, building the self-confidence that they need to have to successfully implement TBL and PBL in the classroom. So it has a lot to do with, it's psychological in nature, is that letting go and believing and trusting in your students that they really will eventually catch on and that they will like what they're experiencing. And you know, one of the reasons that teachers get all stressed out is because of all the planning and the preparing for the classes, you know, getting to know the book and whatever. We don't need all of that for task-based learning and project-based learning. We turn that over to the students. And believe it or not, with primary school students, and this is one of the most wonderful things, is they are fantastic learners and love to discover, and they just take to TBL and PBL quicker than maybe some high school students or adults.
Young learners are very open to different changes.
Yeah,
they adjust easily.
They don't put too much thought into their having fun. And you know, learning is fun for them. And when learning is fun, they'll do it. So, you know, of course, task-based learning does allow the teacher to bring some fun into the room and make learning fun. And that's important.
You've mentioned a very interesting thing that for a TBL for TBL, you actually don't need a course book. Do you build the whole learning process on using some like extra materials, or still you refer to the course book?
Well, you know, I was in Moscow, and I remember saying at one of the workshops that I gave there, there happened to be quite a few publishers and representatives from publishing houses in the room, and I was asked the question, what about books, you know, with TBL and PBL? And I think I maybe created a misunderstanding, so I would like to debunk that. In fact, now I always incorporate one session within the task-based learning PBL and TBL workshops on how we can, you know, more effectively use our textbooks and still, you know, create a task-based learning or project-based learning learning cycle from the books that we probably have to use in the classroom. So no, I don't think that it replaces books. It helps to innovate and be more creative with the books that we probably have to use in the classroom. But once you learn how to do TBL, you will recognize whether you actually are using a good book or not. Because there's things you look for inside of a book. And, you know, is the book dealing with prescribed grammar, predetermined outcomes, that a lot of teachers like to use because they don't have to plan. Everything's just already there. But once they get used to TBL and PBL, they can complement their books and really add to the learning, add more better, positive working and learning dynamics in their classroom that develops naturally, which might not develop from a book.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then I think the next question will relate, to what we've just discussed. How does TBL and PBL incorporate the 4 C's of the 21st century skills, which are cooperation, collaboration, creative thinking, and the fourth, creativity?
Well, it's critical thinking and creativity.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, how do these approaches, TBL and PBL, incorporate these 4 skills, which everyone's talking about today?
Yeah, and you know, it's not new. I remember, you know, going to conferences in the late, you know, 1990s, where we were already talking about the 4 C's, and then all of a sudden it became the 4 C's for 21st century, you know, skills. But you know, the 4 C's are not new. They've been around for many, many years. But you know, with you know all the things that are always happening in the ELT world, you know, there's new names and things like that. But definitely, you know, task-based learning, project-based learning must be able to incorporate the 4 C's. And I'll start with collaboration, because this is what we really want. And this is going to happen in the workshop, by the way, because we have to teach teachers how to collaborate with one another. And once they get the feeling for themselves, they'll realize how important it is for them to really integrate collaboration, group work, teamwork, things like that into the learning cycles. And that might also mean that they might have to be able to, or they should be able to redesign their classrooms to really support collaborative learning. This means maybe changing the tables or the desk in the room so that the students start to look at each other, collaborate with one another, and communicate with one another to solve problems and create, solutions to create better products that they can present. So that's the collaboration part. That's how TBL and PBL work. The communication is a lot of times, in frontal teaching, where the teacher stands in front of the room, and a lot of the communication is between the student and the teacher. We want to really move away from that. If we rearrange the room a little bit, where the students are looking at each other and communicating with each other, this, of course, supports collaboration, supports speaking skills, because, TBL and PBL is very skills oriented. They start speaking to themselves, and language emergence and language production starts to happen naturally, more between the students than between the students and the teachers. So this, again, goes back to student-oriented learning and teacher-oriented learning. And this is where communication, one of the 4 C's, TBL and PBL supports communication. Creativity. TBL, PBL means that students should be working towards creating, good results. That means creating a product which they will present either in the classroom or to the school or to other classes. And we want them to really use everything that they have, the skills they bring to the table. Some students are great with technology. Some people, are very, psychomotor oriented and want to cut and paint and, do something like that. Well, when we're working in a group, we let everybody's skills set shine. And this is what's really important with creativity, that everybody gets to be creative, but maybe in a different way, because all of us bring, different kinds of creative skills to the table. And the last one is critical thinking. We want the students to start thinking for themselves, and believe it or not, but primary school students can think for themselves too. And we want them to discover. We want them to problem solve. We want them to make decisions based on the information that they're gathering, that they're discussing with one another in their groups. And, to be able to make better decisions as they develop and grow, and making them sometimes just better citizens, but better learners. And these 4 C's are skills they will need for the rest of their lives. So why not start them already in primary school? There must be continuity. So, if everybody at the school is cooperating, all the teachers learn how to incorporate the 4 C's and work with TBL and PBL. We create better, more positive and effective learning environments that kids want to come to school. They want to really want to learn, and they'll tell us what they want sometimes. We have to create meaningful learning for them as well. When it's something that they're interested in, it's meaningful for them, they participate.
All right.
And the 4 C's just come naturally.
So you've been saying that TBL is very students-focused, student-centered, and the teacher is stepping behind, yeah? So what's the role of a teacher in this process, and how much, can we call it, prep work, preparation work does it require to start to monitor and control this process?
Well, I think this is the thing with a lot of teachers, why they get scared of TBL once they see what it is, because they think they're going to have to do a lot of preparation, but it's not. And this is why many years ago, when I was the director of the the English department at a major university.
Mm-hmm.
I had a serious problem to overcome, and that was, how do I get my teachers to start using TBL and PBL in the classroom?
Mm-hmm.
And I just came up with ready-made mind maps. I figured, let me do some of the preparation for them.
Mm-hmm.
And once they see how it works, that they'll start to create the ready-made mind maps themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I went to the next step. I didn't want to take the books away from them because that sort of scared them. You know, they were used to working with books.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to show them how to use the book,
Mm-hmm.
create ready-made mind maps from the book, and then move to the third step, which is TBL and PBL.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't automatically happen like a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, TBL is a learned methodology,
Mm-hmm.
and teachers have to get used to it. They need to be walked through the cycle of
Mm-hmm.
how it is, and this is why I love to take hands-on approaches to the workshops, and that's why I never do. It's not effective to do a TBL workshop
Mm-hmm.
in 1 hour or maybe even 4 hours. It
Mm-hmm.
takes about 1.5 to 2 days for the teachers to really comprehend really all the things that they're going to
Mm-hmm.
need to do and that need to learn to make that effective for themselves. Because in the end, teachers will not use any methodology where there is going to be a lot of risk, where they might look unprofessional, or they might look to the students like they don't know what they're doing. And you know, teachers want to look knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely they have to be walked through that.
Mm-hmm.
And here is that a lot of teachers get afraid of, you know, some of the things that they need to learn. And one of those things is called TPAC. And TPAC stands for technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. And we're going to talk about that and how ready-made mind maps really help to facilitate all of that, so that, you know, we get all stressed out and nervous about, you know, all the things that we have to do. But once teachers really learn how to incorporate TPAC and mind mapping and the book and the 4 C's, they'll love TBL and PBL, and will realize that this makes their job easier.
All right. Yeah, and half of the workshop, the second day, if I'm not mistaken, will be devoted to how to create mind maps, right?
How to work with books to create ready-made mind maps, how to get students to create mind maps, and because they need to be able to be to brainstorm and to, you know, get those creative juices going, as I say. And of course, because, you know, TBL should be skills oriented. We have to get them to write. We have to get them to speak. We have to get them to read. We need to get them to listen. And all of those different things. And we're going to teach teachers how to incorporate all those skills into their TBL cycle as well. So yes, they're going to learn that on the first day, but really concentrated. We're going to go into that a little bit deeper on the second day.
Right. So, and Ron, what are some aspects of TBL that can lead to it being successful, or vice versa? Is there something which can prevent TBL from being successful in the classroom?
I had to think about that actually myself, about the question, because
can it be that just TBL doesn't work, or how it might happen that it doesn't work? It's all the responsibilities on the teacher, or did it ever happen? Maybe, you
know, you can't use TBL as this. It's not the silver bullet. It's not the thing that, oh, I'm going to do TBL every day from now on. It's like when I hear teachers say, I'm going to do the lexical approach every day from now on, and I'm going to do it with everything. Well, you know, I'm sort of surprised when I hear that. But TBL is the answer to many of the problems that we have in the classroom. But you can't use it every day, every week. You know, TBL is that thing that we should always lead to, okay? We still need activities in the room. And let me make one thing very clear. We still need grammar, okay? So I
very
believe
important.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important. But how we teach grammar, TBL changes that, okay? It doesn't have to become frontal. And I do believe in natural language acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
I speak
Yeah.
4 languages myself, and I asked myself, how did I learn those languages, and how did I learn the grammar from those languages? And when I really think about it, I had great teachers, and also my parents were great teachers,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it was all natural, and TBL allows that to happen. But another thing that can make TBL go bad is teachers not being in touch with their TPAC. In other
Mm-hmm.
words,
Mm-hmm.
how they integrate technology into the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
their pedagogical skills,
Mm-hmm.
and their content knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that we should be the experts for everything. And if I'm not, then I'm not going to do it. We don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we will learn that in the workshop, that you don't have to be an expert on anything. But in the end, teachers walk out and leave a TBL cycle and a PBL cycle with a lot of a better understanding of themselves as teachers and what they're doing in that classroom, what they're doing right, and maybe sometimes what they're doing wrong. But in the end, it helps us to improve our classroom management skills. It helps us to increase meaningful learning.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us to scaffold
Mm-hmm.
our learning, uh, and it helps us to slowly get away from. I just said we need grammar, but to get
Yeah.
away from prescribed grammar,
Yeah, from the
and
course. Mm-hmm.
yeah, from the course book says let's do the present perfect today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody walks around speaking present perfect all day
Mm-hmm.
long. Only that. It's
Mm-hmm.
always about mixed grammar, and
Mm-hmm.
task-based learning and project-based learning allows mixed grammar to be integrated in a natural way, where students don't realize that they're doing grammar. But
Mm-hmm.
we do have to walk through that in the workshop to teach teachers how to recognize natural grammar.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Uh,
Well, Ron, it seems to me that you've answered lots of questions, and I'm personally really, really excited and looking forward to your workshop.
I am too.
Yeah,
Now you
okay.
promise it's not going to be cold.
Well, today we are at about, I think, +8. So in 2 weeks, it's going to be +15. So I think everything
Okay.
will be fine.
I
All right.
really look forward to coming to seeing lots of new faces and teachers,
Mm-hmm.
coming to Rostov-on-Don,
Mm-hmm.
to the pilot school, and I'm sure that everyone will have at the end, when we do our wrap-up session. I think that's the last 30 minutes are always the most fantastic for me, is I always ask the question, what is your takeaway?
Mm-hmm.
And that takeaway is always based upon the attitudes that we started with, and did some of those attitudes about learning and teaching change at the end of these 2 days? I really believe that it will.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank you very much for inviting me.